All right, my friends, happy Thursday night. I just want to do a quick one here today because I've been doing this all day long on ETFs, exchange traded funds versus mutual funds when it comes to taxation. I know a lot of people will watch a live video more so than they'll watch a prepackaged one. So I'm just going to throw this out there. So if you can catch this live, more power to you. If you can't, this will obviously be on the channel as well. Understand an exchange traded fund is much, much more tax favorable than a mutual fund. So if you have a taxable investment account of any sort, you have a mutual fund, a brokerage account, any kind of mutual fund account, a taxable account, an account at Schwab, an account at USAA or Vanguard, understand that ETFs, exchange traded funds, you do not pay capital gains by and large at all while you hold the fund. You don't. A mutual fund, you do. All right. In fact, a mutual fund, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to do a video on this tomorrow. Hey, what's going on, Big A? Where you calling? Where you coming in from? What state? I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to do a video where I'm going to show you the difference between a guy who's got a taxable account in mutual funds and a guy who's got a taxable. And I say guy is gender neutral, folks. New Jersey, right on. Okay, New Jersey. Big Al's from New Jersey. All right, so we got a guy for the ETF exchange traded fund portfolio versus a guy with a mutual fund portfolio. I'm going to show you the difference in the net accumulated value later on down the road. It's hey, thanks, Big A. Big A from New Jersey says he really enjoys my videos. My sister lives in North Jersey. I lived in South Jersey for 22 months to be exact, but who's counting? Anyway, so we're gonna show you this, and the difference is amazing. And the funny thing is, when I use the mutual fund, I'm not using a high aggressive tax turnover mutual fund. Remember, turnover is how much the portfolio trades each year. All right. So if you have 100 stocks in a portfolio and you have 100 turnover, 100% turnover, that means those 100 stocks, each of them were traded within the course of that year. It just means there's 100 transactions essentially. So some people say, well, I kept a fund of stock, I didn't trade that. You still traded 100 times. So if you have 100 stocks in a portfolio, you traded 100 times. That's 100% turnover, which is very, very high. That's very inefficient tax-wise. And when I use my turnover, what I'll show you tomorrow in the video I'm going to do, I'm working on right now, is we use a 5% turnover. That's 20% less, just 1/20th of the turnover of a typical average mutual fund with 100% turnover. I cannot stress this enough. We use a 5% turnover because your typical index fund has a 5% turnover. And yet you still have enormous tax consequence in that account when you factor in at the end of the couple, say 20 years or something like that. The difference is just as breathtaking, frankly. And then on top, what's even worse is if, in this case, my guy, he doesn't want the money. He's like, I'm going to leave it to my kids. Well, if you want to leave it to your kids, an ETF, exchange trade fund, is even better for you because when your kids inherit the proceeds, there is no taxes to them. It's called a step-up basis. So I probably don't have anything to write it on. Maybe I'll do this. I don't have a good piece of paper. Got lots of notes here from all my stuff here. Let me bust out so I'm going to show you what a step-up basis is. All right, well, this is probably too big. So you take a $100,000 fund, and it grows to $500,000. All right, so you got $100,000, it grows to $500,000. When you die, that $500,000 is inherited completely tax-free by your heirs, be it your kids, be it me, it doesn't matter. Whoever gets it will get that $500,000 tax-free, even though you only paid $100,000 for it. Now, what happens is in a mutual fund, and again, I'm just using a regular mutual fund. Say you have $100,000. Again, you put $100,000 in there, but it grew to $200,000. Not grew, but it had $100,000 of capital gain distribution. So now your cost basis is $200,000. All right, so you started with $100,000. You had $100,000 capital gain distributions over the course of that 20 years. It's still worth $500,000, but when you die, you only get $300,000 tax free because you've already paid $100,000 in taxes on that. I hope that makes sense. Not you, but your heirs. So let me just explain this again because I don't think I explained it well. You got two things going on here. You got an ETF account. You put $100,000 in. 20 years later, it's worth $500,000. You get hit by that bus. That $500,000 goes to your heirs completely tax-free. There's no taxes whatsoever because of what's called step-up and basis rules. This is a non-IRA account, my friends. A non-401k, a non-IRA is what's called a taxable account. Now, the same thing. You have a mutual fund. You start with $100,000 again in a non-IRA, but you had $100,000 over the course of those 20 years of capital gain distributions, and that's not crazy talk. That would be actually, I could easily see that happen. So now your cost basis is $200,000. When you die, again, the thing was worth $500,000 at your death. Now your kids will still inherit that. They won't pay any tax on that either. But the difference is you paid $100,000 of capital gain tax, where you paid nothing in the ETF. So your kids are inheriting $500,000, $400,000 completely tax free. Start with 100, it's worth 500. You die, they get $500,000, 400,000 capital gains completely tax free. When you have a mutual fund account or a taxable account that has capital gains and stuff like that, paying out all the time, that $100,000, you had to pay $100,000 in taxes to add to your initial $100,000 cost basis. Now, when you get hit by that bus, that $500,000 still transfers to the kids tax free. They don't care, but you have less money because you had to pay taxes on $100,000. And I cannot, for the love of me, I'm sitting there and something sparked my mind on this the other day. I was listening to a guy, Meb Faber, Mebfaber. And he runs some ETFs called Cambria out of San Diego or something like that. He's got a great podcast. If you're looking for podcasts on investment, you can't beat Meb. The guy's just fantastic. And he's a young guy, actually, probably younger than me. But anyway, he does a great podcast, Meb Faber podcast. And he had an episode that just, I forgot all about the ETF tax benefits relative to me. I couldn't believe it. I said, oh my God, I totally forgot about this. And Meb's argument is like, there's no reason anyone should own a mutual fund inside a taxable account. And I was like, you know something? I had totally forgotten about the benefits of ETFs relative to mutual funds. And so when I'm doing this portfolio or financial plan for this client I've got, I said, why is he getting all these 1099 distributions? I'm having index funds. They're only paying there's only a 5% turnover, which is nothing. Why is this happening? And then I realized because the capital gain distributions he has to pay. And as the account grows in value, the amount of capital gain distributions grow in value, which means the taxes grow in value, which is not what he wants to have happen. And so going back to my 3-bucket approach of the 3 right here, what I talked about earlier today, the 3 accounts, taxable, tax deferred, and tax free, we want to load up his taxable stuff with ETFs to get that puppy to grow as much as possible, unencumbered by any capital gain distributions. None. And ETFs allow that to happen. Exchange traded funds, they allow that to happen, or mutual funds don't. And so this is what I'm going to show you tomorrow. And so when you see the difference, you'll be like, man, who knew? I hope that makes sense. And I'm just, like I said, I want to hit this, what's the word I'm looking for? Beat this dead horse like that. But I'm telling you, if you have a non-IRA, non-401k, non-403b, non-TSP, just a good old-fashioned brokerage account, and you got some mutual funds in there, you got to think again. Absolutely. Now, someone emailed me or commented on a video I did earlier today that said, hey, he said about the Fidelity Fund, should you do the Fidelity Index 500? I think that's called the Fidelity Spartan. The answer would be no, you don't want to do that. You'd much rather do a Fidelity ETF. They're all, Fidelity's fine, Schwab, they're all the same thing. But you don't want to just sell your fund, because if you're back at $100,000 as your cost basis, now it's worth $500,000 and you sell it, well, you're going to pay capital gain tax on that $400,000. We don't want you to do that to avoid a capital gain tax in the future. Don't do that. So look to see what your taxable unrealized gain is in your account before you start selling stuff willy-nilly. Don't need that, my friends. That's bad. So avoid taxes the much you can. However, let's just say you're getting in the market, you're putting $150 a month or something like that, where you say, I got $10,000. I don't know. The insurance company paid out because some drunk kid hit me. I got $10,000. Put it in an ETF. And remember, an ETF, the tickers are usually going to be 3 letters to 4 letters. All right. I don't think any ETFs have 5 letters. Mutual funds will have 5. So I'll give you an example. The Vanguard Small Cap Index, the mutual fund is NAESX, November, Alpha, Echo, Sierra, X-Ray. NAESX, that's the Vanguard Small Cap Index Fund. The Vanguard Small Cap ETF is VTWO, Victor, Tango, Whiskey, Oscar. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so you see the 4 for the ETF and the 5 for the mutual fund. That's how you know. Now, what happens with the ETF? You have to pay a commission to get up front. Now, Vanguard, I think Vanguard is offering commission-free ETF just transactions now. I don't know if Schwab is or not. If so, I think Schwab is too. So I'm not pushing for Vanguard. I don't care. But I think Schwab is too. I'm not sure about Fidelity. But those are big three right there. Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity. And it seems like I'm missing one. I forgot. But anyway, so long story short, there's absolutely no reason to pay much of a commission. I mean, $5-10, what to do. You pay for it once, you're done. You're done. One of these days, maybe I'll even go over how to buy a stock, because an ETF is a stock online. I might do that, actually. It might be kind of interesting. It's easy to do once you know how to do it. Until you know how to do it, it could be a little bit intimidating. I get that. But once you know how to do it, you're like, oh, that's simple. I might do that one time. But anyway, so just remember that with an ETF, you do have to purchase it. And if you're doing it on a monthly basis, you got to go to some place where they don't charge a commission every time you make a purchase. So if you're putting $150 into an ETF, you got to be a Vanguard or a Fidelity or Schwab if they offer for commission-free trades, because you don't want to be paying $20 each time you're putting in $150. That's just not efficient. So you want to go to an exchange or one that does not charge commissions. And that, again, Vanguard, I know doesn't. I don't know about the other firms either. ETFs, man, get that in your head. Now, on the other hand, if you have an IRA, it doesn't matter, because IRAs all come out as capital gains, as ordinary income. They all come out as ordinary income. Any money that's coming out of an IRA, this is not a Roth. This is a traditional IRA, 401k, 403b, the whole thing. It comes out as ordinary income, the worst kind of income tax you could pay. So it doesn't matter if you have a tax efficient account in an ETF, a non-efficient, it doesn't matter, because anything that comes out is going to be ordinary income tax. So is Big A says, okay, so I didn't see two questions. So Valerie says, what's an ETF? Okay, good. And Big A says, Dave Ramsey is wrong. I'm not sure what, love Big Dave. When it comes to investing, I'm not a fan. On all the other stuff I am, but when it comes to investing, I'm not. So Valerie, an ETF is called an exchange traded fund. I'm very glad you asked me that, actually, because this is my third or fourth video I've done on this today, because it's just hit me on the head like I haven't relayed what an ETF is. So Valerie says, what's an ETF? So in the old days, you just had mutual funds. And the mutual funds, you had a proportional share of hundreds, tens, dozens, hundreds of stocks. So you owned a fund and had hundreds of stocks in there, and you own 1/10 of one share of Apple, or 2.6 shares of GE or something like that. And that's a mutual fund. You're putting your money in with my money, with that guy down the street, with Big A here. We're all mutually investing in this fund that is managed by a professional. And we're paying that guy, through the fees that are charged that we never get billed for or invoiced, which is a pet peeve of mine, but that's how it works. And so with a mutual fund, what happens is because it's just a conglomeration of a bunch of different investors, they only trade once a day. All right, that's it. So there's no active trading. It just trades once a day, and that's at 4 p.m. All right, so 4 p.m. the market is closed. The mutual fund executes its buy orders and it executes its sell orders. So in some ways, it's not that efficient for trading, but we don't care about trading. It just doesn't make sense to be trading regularly. So mutual funds are good. It gave middle-class people a way to get into the market without having to buy 100 shares of stock, but back in the day would cost $1,000. It's just regular people like us could get into the markets, and many people got wealthy because of that. Around the mid 90s, they rolled out this thing. I think it was Spider, and I forgot even who does Spider. State Street, I think, is called the ETF, Exchange Traded Fund. And the ETF is a mutual fund essentially in a stock, like an individual stock wrapper. What I mean by that is you can trade it all day long. You can, until 9:30, and when the market's open till 4 p.m. when they close, trade. Every trade, just like a regular stock of Coke or AT&T, whatever, would cost a commission, all those things. But it's a conglomeration of holdings, just like a mutual fund was. So going back to the S&P 500, you have VW or a VTWO, which is a Vanguard version of their small company stock fund, but it's an ETF, an exchange traded fund, which meant you could buy, sell. You could sell options against it. I'm not sure if you can, I don't know if you could short it. I don't know, and that's a little bit too deep for this. But an ETF is just a little bit more of a way to get a little bit more active in investing. Now, the interesting thing with ETFs is the primary ETFs were all indexed initially when they first rolled out. It was all index funds, which meant their fees are very, very low relative to mutual funds. And so they're all passive, i.e. I'm just buying a basket of stocks that's based on the S&P 500. I'm buying a basket of stocks that's based on the Russell 2000, whatever it would be. It's just a very passive account, not a lot of buying and selling, not a lot of activity. It's just, I'm buying the index and I'm holding it and I'm never going to sell it. And if I want to sell it, I can sell it throughout the day, but typically I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to hold it. And it's going to be a whole lot more efficient from a tax perspective and cheaper as well. So ETFs right there had 2 thumbs up or legs up on the mutual funds because it's more tax efficient by far, as I've talked about. And typically the fees are much, much lower as well. So ETFs were fantastic. What happened was, just to give you a little history, is that a lot of investment managers, of which I was one for many years, became enamored with the idea and the facts, frankly, that we could not beat the market at all. So we're paying these investment managers 1% a year on top of charging a commission or charging our own fee, and our clients were not making money relative to the market as a whole. And so finally, just like this, all of a sudden out of nowhere, just everyone kind of at one time, they all said, I can't beat the market. So I'm going to actually try to join the market. But instead of paying that guy over there, that mutual fund manager, I'm going to keep the fee for myself. I'm just going to put my clients in ETFs. I'm still going to charge the same fee, but I'm going to give myself that 1% fee instead of that guy down the street. And because of that, the market has just changed just foundationally over the last 10 years or so. It's amazing, actually, when you see it. When it's simply incredible. The change that the stock market has made is just mind-boggling. So now very, very few people will do actively managed funds. They just realize that it's a loser's game for sure. So everybody and their mom wants to go to ETFs. But now the problem is, and John Bogle from Vanguard says, now we got an ETF for everything. Here's my cup of hot tea. There's an ETF for hot tea. I mean, there's not, but there's an ETF for my hearing aids, which I talked about earlier today. There's an ETF for everything. So it's going away from completely being a passive way to just match the market with low fees and very tax efficiency to all these different strategies to try to time the market, beat the market, do all this. And again, I don't know if you can short them, but you certainly can leverage up and do all the stuff that John Bogle and the other good guys, investors, said you shouldn't be doing. And ETFs now allow you to do that. So there's an ETF for every situation. Literally, Indonesian tech stocks. There's an ETF, I'm sure. It's crazy. And so that makes the ETF starting to get a little bit, because that's where the money is. No one's buying actively managed mutual funds anymore. So now they're having actively managed ETFs. But the thing is, they still have the tax advantage. They're still tax advantage. But just real quick, always understand, my friends, an ETF does not necessarily mean it has to be synonymous with low fees. I'm just telling you, that's my concern. Is a lot of people say, I got an ETF, I'm not paying much fees. And the old days, that was true. Not so much now. You just got to double check. Even if you're paying a high fee in an ETF, it's still much more tax favorable than a mutual fund. That's the interesting thing. You don't pay capital gains on your ETFs, whereas a mutual fund you do. And that's a big flipping deal. That's a huge, huge deal, which is why at the end of the day, the ETFs were going to just dominate the mutual fund industry. But I mean, it's not going to be. They're doing it right now, and they'll continue to do so because there's absolutely no reason to have a mutual fund outside of a tax deferred account. And because mutual funds are still more expensive anyway, even inside tax deferred accounts, it doesn't make sense to have a mutual fund. If I can get an ETF at 8 basis points, that's literally 0.08%. So you got 1% is 100 basis points. 8 basis points is 0.08%. And now you get fee-free ETFs from Schwab, commission-free ETFs from Vanguard with fees like 2 basis points is insane. So because the days of the mutual funds are coming to an end shortly, and ETFs will take over everything. And that's probably a good thing. But it just means you got to be a little bit more diligent in making sure you're not getting screwed just because it says ETF. I got an ETF. Okay, what does that mean exactly? I don't know. You want to be better because just because it has a term ETF on there doesn't mean it's going to be a good thing for you. It most likely will be better, but it won't be necessarily a good one. Anyway, just something to research on for sure. It's funny when I'll stop, but I used to get this thing called ETF Insider or something that was magazine. It's probably like 5 pages long. This is back in the early 2000s. It's like just, they had all the lists of all the ETFs out there. And it's like just a couple of pages. They sent that to me like 2 months or 2 years ago. The last time I got, it's like this thick now. It's crazy how many. I just saw that Nationwide Insurance is rolling out ETFs. And I said, oh, for the love of Mary, if Nationwide Insurance is rolling out ETFs, does that mean we're jumping the shark? I don't know, but good night. USAA has ETFs, and these are, you can't get more plain vanilla than Nationwide Insurance or USAA Insurance. In fact, they're rolling out their own ETFs. I'm like, yeah, I mean, more power to them. I don't care, but it just shows you that if these guys are rolling out ETFs, mutual fund days are behind us, and that's good, but you just gotta be careful. All right. Anyway, and lastly, so just going on, because Valerie asked what time it was. I'm telling you how the watch is made. It wasn't that long ago. There's no bond ETFs. I remember about 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago now, I guess about 2005, I was looking for a Vanguard bond ETF. There wasn't any. And me and this guy it's probably 2006, I guess. Me and this guy from Vanguard used to go around and doing seminars on Vanguard ETFs. And I tell you, I said, man, I wish you guys had a bond ETF. And I forgot the guy's name. He said, no, we're thinking about it. It's just a little bit hard to get through the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, because they were not all that keen on ETFs when they first started. And for bonds, even worse. But now there's been an explosion of ETFs of all shapes and sizes. Bonds, you name it, there's an ETF for you. It's crazy. But you don't need all that fancy schmancy stuff. You just get a couple good broad market ETFs from a reputable firm that's been doing it for a while. State Street, I think it's State Street. I can't remember. But Vanguard does, Fidelity does, Schwab does, iShares. Hey, right on, Bruce. I think that's the base of big four: Vanguard, iShares, State Street, and Schwab. Now Fidelity does too. I'm not the biggest fan of State Street, frankly, but you can't go wrong with Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard. All right, my friends. So stay tuned for my one tomorrow. I might show you I'm going to do a analysis of a financial plan of the difference in taxation. Great West. That's an insurance company. Great. Valerie says great. I don't know if y'all can see this, but Valerie says Great West. I think that's an insurance company. There used to be a bond fund called Western Asset. I think I forgot. There was a big bond firm in the old back 15, 20 years ago. Western. I don't think it was Great West. It was Western something though. I forgot. Western Institutional. I forgot. They were good. I don't know what happened to them. They probably went bankrupt in 2008. All right, so stay tuned for tomorrow. It won't be a live one, but it will be a video where I show you this financial plan I do with this guy who's got mutual funds versus a guy who has ETFs. It'll blow your mind. See you next time. Thanks, guys. Great West Trust.